Everyone has heard of the iPhone, but what you're looking at here is the H-phone, brother. And with an H-phone, you can tweet, you can Instagram, you can Facebook, and you can YouTube. Or
WrestleBeards, we got all your wrestling gear. WrestleBeards, woo! Hairy men with dirty beards. WrestleBeards Worldwide.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another week of the weekly WrestleBeards podcast. My name's Shrek, and I'm joined today with my regular co-host, Luke.
Hi guys, yeah, good to be back. Podcast number 5. Hope you enjoy.
I'm excited. It's been a interesting week of wrestling for sure. Lots to talk about. Before we do, I just want to give a shout out to one of our newest subscribers, Corey. He also has his own podcast with another friend of ours, Giles, Black and the Brit. Shout out to Corey.
Yeah, cheers, Corey. I did tell you about it previously, but
who knows? Who knows what that guy's been drinking it down in Jakarta town. Anyway, good to be back, Luke. How about you kick us off with our first segment?
Yeah, let's. So let's get the tires on for the weekly
Hang on a minute.
news. That didn't really go to plan.
Always got the tie ready, Luke. Always got the tie ready.
Very good. So, yeah, interesting week in the wrestling world. Some notable mentions: the Good Brothers to AEW with the transition and crossover between Impact Wrestling and an AEW and New Japan Wrestling. So it's looking really good. Yeah,
sweet.
Very too sweet. And the news of NXT India, but Shrek will say about that a little bit later. So the main news of the week came Monday on Raw. Is there potentially a COVID outbreak within the WWE? Lots of sort of unplanned matches. Drew McIntyre away from the Performance Center or the Thunderdome. And obviously announcing on the show that he had COVID, asymptomatic, wasn't feeling any symptoms, but is COVID positive. So that was interesting. He was meant to be having a match with Randy Orton, and then the COO, Triple H, came in and stepped in the 11th hour to make sure the show went as planned. But yeah, it's quite interesting. I'm quite surprised that hasn't happened already, considering the nature of wrestling, considering how close these guys are. But what are your thoughts on that, Shrek?
Yeah, it's a bit scary. At the end of the day, wrestling is just a entertainment outlet, but people's lives are far more important. So I wish Drew all the best for a quick recovery. But however, you never know. Like, because it's such a money-driven industry, maybe Vince behind the scenes is just making people have to work through it with illness or putting them in unsafe situations. I hope not. I mean, it's not just in WWE. We've seen it in AEW as well, and Impact. Yeah, it's a horrible situation to have happen. I mean, full credit to these guys who put their lives on the line essentially by coming to work throughout this pandemic. But yeah, I don't see it worth it. And having him rush back for the Royal Rumble, not knowing if he's going to recover yet, I think it's a bit ridiculous. I think they should have just rescheduled a different match. But and who's to know behind the scenes who else has it as well? Like, as you say, there was a lot of redos and a lot of double ups of people performing in several matches throughout Raw and SmackDown. Who knows why that was? Was it because they didn't have enough performers at hand?
Oh, certainly. Like we had Jeff Hardy doing a double shift, Matt Riddle and Keith Lee all doing a double shift. But then you've got people like Ric Flair, who seems to be a main character again with Lacey Evans, And Ric Flair's, he's not of the best health. Like,
I mean, if anything, I know. I don't know a lot about COVID-19, but I do know that those who are weak and older should be, protected the most. And Ric Flair is one of the oldest, so it seems a bit ridiculous.
It does, and that segues actually into my second point of the news. And it's not really a news headline. It's something that I read about in the week, and it had me thinking that obviously if there is this COVID outbreak, as we've seen in many different sports, it doesn't go away overnight. We've got the Royal Rumble looming in 3 weeks' time, January 31st. Are they really going to be able to do the Rumble? I've heard whispers, reports of potentially the Rumble being cancelled or postponed. Obviously, you and I would be gutted about that because it is our favourite pay-per-view of the year.
For sure.
But 30 men in a ring and 30 women in a ring with COVID positive outbreaks left, right, and centre. Is it a wise thing to do?
Well, this is it. Yes, personally, we'd be both gutted if it was cancelled or postponed. But the people's interests have got to be looked after first and foremost. The show must go on. It could happen down the track. I'd rather see a Royal Rumble with fans anyway, rather than, we haven't seen it. It's unproven. But to have people come back, make their debuts, come back for a surprise return, would that be weird with no fans? And just in the Thunderdome? I don't know. And is it worth it? That's the other thing. Yeah, it's true. Like, we've got to, obviously, you and I both want it. I can't imagine a summer Rumble, but, it could be pretty cool. Maybe an outside venue. That would be let's be honest, like Money in the Bank, we thought that would be a weird thing last year, and then they turned it around and made it into something special, what they could do, and maybe they'll do the same with the Rumble. Yeah. And my last piece of news, it was I was thinking after our podcast last week about this Adam Pearce angle from SmackDown, and I was thinking he's going to bring someone in to replace Roman. I didn't think it would be happening this week, which it did, which I'll go into. I was thinking, given my news last week of Damian Priest, I was thinking it's going to be Damian Priest. Damian Priest versus Roman Reigns at the Rumble main event. Priest would lose, but would give a good showing of himself, and maybe he's like he's Adam Pearce's buddy. However, watching SmackDown today, and this isn't in my SmackDown review, so I'll mention it now. The Mysterios, and there's some interesting stuff going on there. So Rey Mysterio versus Baron Corbin. Corbin wins after a tried interference from Dominic. After the match, they're doing a segue and a promo, and Mysterio says, "I've got someone who will help us." And then it goes off back to the commentary desk, and the first thing that Corey Graves says is, "Well, they're going to need a priest or a savior. There's no one who can defeat Baron Corbin." And obviously this isn't just like he gets this fed into him. You've got to say this. You've got to say this, Priest. So I think Damian Priest is going to be the Mysterio's odd man to come in. Obviously, Damian Priest from Puerto Rico, Mysterio's from Mexico, both Central America. I'm sure Vince McMahon probably just sees it as South America, but I think they're probably going to line them up like that with the Latinos and Damian Priest. That's just my my Luke,
cents.
As long as it's not Cain Velasquez coming to help Ray out again, I think I'll be happy with that. There's always these tenuous links that they try and bring up an NXT star with these days. There was the echoes Priest was going to be Kevin Owens' buddy as well. So that makes more sense having the Central America link, I guess, if anything. Yeah. But
it's a bit tedious, but I maybe I'm just looking into it. But
how about another show? Just leave Damian Priest down in NXT because he's doing okay. You know what? Why bother bringing him up to an already crowded main roster? But yeah,
it'll be in the mid card of Doom, won't he? Straight away.
Well, some interesting news there, Luke. A good roundup, and hopefully we do see the Rumble happen. I guess we'll find out when we do. How about I lead us now into our next segment, which is the Raw Takeaways. We can get these ties off.
We'll take this tie off. It'll tie on a Saturday.
Exactly. Well, Raw this week was definitely an improvement on the Raw Legends, so we had to go on a little bit of an up, but that's not saying much because it wasn't that fantastic. But you know, anything's going to beat the Raw Legends night. That said, we did open the show with a legend this week in Triple H, which was good to see him make his debut in the Thunderdome, and he made his way out. And obviously, as you remarked earlier, it was due to Drew McIntyre's absence. They had to bring some kind of star power into the show, and Triple H definitely has that star power. So, he came down and he had a bit of a welcome to the Thunderdome. It's quite fun. And then he was interrupted by Randy Orton. And Randy Orton obviously has been feuding with The Fiend as of recent times, but wants to get back in the title picture, it would seem, and demands that Triple H give him, first of all, he wants the number 30 spot. Then he wants the title just handed over to him because Drew can't compete. Yeah. And at that point, because I hadn't been actually following the news too much, I didn't realize that Drew wasn't going to be even present on Raw. So I was kind of a bit sort of taken back by that. There was no announcement at that point until we actually had a, before I get onto that, so there's a bit of banter between Randy and Triple H, leading to Randy challenging Triple H to find his balls out of Stephanie's purse and have a match with him later in the evening. It's not officially made at that point. It will be later in the evening. And then we cut away to Drew McIntyre, who's at home on location, where he announces that he is absent because he has contracted the COVID-19, the global bastard. And, like we said before, very unfortunate and not nice. So we at the WrestleBeards, we wish you a steady recovery and a fast one. Drew, he could have just said it all in one little segment then, but he has another cutaway later in the evening where then he responds to Oldberg from previously being issued a challenge on Raw the previous week at the Legends night. And he agrees to the match with Oldberg because of reasons, which I don't still understand. And he denies any animosity towards Legends, which we all agree with. I've never seen Drew, getting in Legends' faces. And it seems all weird. So it was a weird beginning to Raw. What do you think about, A, the Triple H return, and B, what do you think about Drew's cutaway?
Well, I thought the Triple H return, obviously this was a makeshift match or promo, I thought was good. And having Randy Orton come out and challenge him, I enjoyed. I liked the Triple H punch, and then Randy Orton said, I guess that means yes. Obviously, there is something that happens a little bit later on. I really liked the Drew promo, the initial one, the COVID-19 one. I thought as the face of the Raw brand, that was a really cool, good thing to do. He didn't need to do that.
Well, it was shocking they actually mentioned COVID-19 on WWE programming. I don't think I've ever mentioned it ever so far. So to have
they've not.
And bring some light to it and talk about, safety precautions and so forth, I think was important. Yeah, sorry.
And saying, well, if I can get it, then anyone can get it. I thought was good. Again, as the top person in the Raw brand was good. With the Goldberg stuff, I didn't think he was going to accept it, and he said, and then you put your hands on me, and so I've got to teach you a lesson, and it's a lesson that obviously you want to learn. And I thought, it felt a bit heelish what he was doing. Like, I'm going to teach you a lesson.
Just looking at like the replay back of Goldberg from the previous week, he looks a lot like Mike Ehrmantraut from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Yeah, he does.
I can't stop looking at Goldberg and seeing Mike, and it's just so weird. And he seems so much older than he has on any. I know he literally is older, but seems way more older than he's ever looked before. And I just don't see this as going to be a great match. And by gosh, with Drew down for the count at the moment, I hope that they don't make Goldberg the winner and the new WWE champion.
There was a line that you've never experienced being WWE champion, and the other line that you said was, fighting me would be like fighting yourself 20 years ago.
Yeah,
God, it's so scripted, and if they're trying to make Goldberg the face of this and McIntyre the heel, like, it's not good.
Hope not. Well, that leads on to my next point anyway. It was a night of match redos. So we had, first of all, the continuing feud of Elias and Jeff Hardy. They came out for what I assume was a scheduled match, but then Elias chickened off and let his buddy Jackson Riker take the match on. Jeff wins the said match, I believe, and then Elias then wants to get involved himself suddenly, which is weird.
Yep.
Wanted to fight him previously, and they have another match, which I don't really enjoy this feud at all. I don't see it going further. No. We also see Riddle and big Bobby Lashley fighting for the US title, which we predicted would have happened at the last pay-per-view. Didn't. So this is the first time they've had the title on the line. He was beaten just, considerably. He lost clean, which I was quite surprised with. And then Riddle challenged MVP to a match, which MVP was in his plain clothes, street clothes. He wasn't ready to perform. So I didn't get why that happened. We had Lee and Sheamus having their continuing good guy, bad guy, buddy off. Are they friends? Are they not friends? Angle. They were tagging up against Miz and Morrison, and it was quite a good match actually. But they won, and then it cut away to something like an ad break, and then it came back, and randomly they were fighting each other, which I didn't understand why that was happening. It's the second time that Sheamus has had a random backstage or in the ring impromptu match for no reason. He did it with Drew a few weeks earlier. And then again, after said match, they did a bit of a hug and it was all roses again. So I don't get the Sheamus angle at the moment. I don't understand what is happening with him and Lee. And they're both kind of floundering. And I don't understand all of the redos this week on Raw. What's your take on it, Luke?
Well, obviously they were hard pushed for talent. So they had to get Jeff Hardy to, as I said, to go twice, Riddle to go twice, and Lee and Sheamus both to go twice. But they also had Drew Gulak in a match that lasted like 3 or 4 minutes when they could have just said to Gulak, I think he was he against AJ Styles?
Yeah, he was fighting for a Rumble position.
Yeah, that could have been a 20-minute match. We saw Drew Gulak is a good, physical wrestling technician. So is AJ. They could have just gone 20 minutes, not had these repeated matches, and that would have covered the time. I didn't understand it. It was just boring. It doesn't keep your attention.
No, I have to agree on that one. So that was confusing, but did further some storylines. And I think if you're going to have nonsense matches, they still have to further a storyline, I guess. And then the night was capped off. Obviously, Triple H fighting Randy Orton in a grudge match of sorts. You said something nasty about my balls. We've got to fight. So they have said fight. It's nothing we haven't seen before between these two. They're both consummate professionals, and it was just nice to see Triple H back in the ring, of course.
It was.
It ends up with Triple H sort of on the outside of the ring at a point. The lights dim, and we hear spooky music. And then Triple H suddenly just brandishes his sledgehammer, which is on fire, which was quite cool and quite gnarly to see, actually. And then I'm like, oh, the Fiend's back. He's not burned to death, and he's not back. But Alexa Bliss is back. We haven't seen her since, well, I think it was only 2 weeks ago when
couple of weeks ago, yeah,
supposedly set on fire herself. She then has a bit of a stare down with Orton in the dark and produces her glove, which says pain. And then she shoots a fireball into Randy Orton's face, which was amazing, I thought. It looked real, and that's a good start for one thing. Randy Orton sold it so well, as he does actually. I think that's one of the best things about Orton. He is a prick, and he does, does some prickish things at times. But, when he has to sell for others, he does a good job of it. And maybe that's the sign of why he's been in the company so long. But it intrigues. It tells me, obviously, the Fiend's coming back. Will it lead to a match at the Rumble? Will it lead to a match down the line at Mania? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the Triple H Randy Orton match was pretty good. I was a bit confused when Triple H pulled the sledgehammer up in the dark and it was on fire. But then thinking about it, it was obviously that Alexa Bliss had set it on fire. She had put it on fire. The visual of the Hadouken shot into Orton's face was pretty good, and yeah, he sold it like it was the worst pain he's ever felt, and I know he's blind. It's kind of similar to Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar, he's one of the best sellers when he wants to do it, and it's the same with Orton. Like if he can see something good in it, he will sell the hell out of it. Where it leads to, I think that the Fiend returns at the Rumble and will eliminate Orton, which will then lead to a match at WrestleMania.
Well, let's hope so. I mean, sometimes the absence of a character can build them up a lot further. I think Alexa in her presence is doing a lot more for Fiend than Fiend returning and losing to.
Oh, she's excellent. Yeah, she's
but,
excellent.
And I mean, it's a great feud. I'm enjoying it. I think that in a world of sort of normality and most storylines being fitting in the realms of normality, it's good to have something that bends the norm. It's a bit Undertaker-esque, having fire and people set on fire and thunderbolts shot out of arms. But that's what the WWE is. It's a mixed bag. It's one of my favorite things, this angle at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It's really, really good.
So overall, Raw was a bit of a stinker again, but it did end on a high note. How about SmackDown this week? Do you want to get into our SmackDown takeaways? Yeah,
well, SmackDown this morning was really good again, and quite the opposite. It didn't seem like they had a lack of talent. No one pulled double duty. All good matches, and there were quite a few matches on the card. First of which was Nakamura versus Jey Uso. After a really good promo from Jey Uso, he did say "oos" a little bit too much for my liking, and it became a little bit distracting. But then Nakamura's music comes on, and it's back to his old good boy Nakamura. There was no Japanese singing over the top, so the fans couldn't sing along to it. I thought they were going to go that way. I expected that they would do that at the Rumble, where like face Nakamura is fully back, and then the face turn was cemented with the bit on the ropes that he does, where he flings his arm down, and you've got the violin sort of going down in the octaves. So yeah, face Nak is back. I've copyrighted that.
I'm not a fan.
that face Nak is back.
I guess we'll allow you that one lame catchphrase. And I was going to actually refer to one catchphrase that Nakamura himself said. Roman Reigns is the big dog, but you are the little puppy. I thought it was funny.
Which really upset Jey Uso. Oh. So Nakamura kicked him in the face. But no, good solid match. It was a good solid match between them. I was a bit intrigued by Cesaro's presence. I thought perhaps I can see a Cesaro Nakamura storyline coming.
Which I'm actually against. I think that could be quite cool. I would like to see Nakamura get into the title picture. I'd even like to see Cesaro get up there and perhaps both of them in contention. It's a very similar storyline of the Drew Sheamus one at the moment, though, like real good buddies, but maybe one of them is going to turn on the other. It was good to see Cesaro get a bit of time on the commentary as well.
It was, yeah, no, he was good, and that was something that was quite regular throughout the night. There were a few special guest commentators which I liked. The best one being Billy Kay. She was hilarious. She was making me laugh a lot. For sure. But yeah, the face knack almost lost, but Jey Uso was caught with his feet on the ropes for the 1, 2, 3. Then Nakamura then ended up winning with a Kinshasa to get his win. Cesaro came in. I was thinking Cesaro going to turn. He didn't. Just sort of hugged him and held his arms aloft. Now, I think they are giving Nakamura a run at the title. And the only reason being his contract is up very, very soon. So I think trying to entice him to stay, because there's talk of him maybe going back to New Japan. Obviously, Nakamura likes living in America because he's a big surfer. And, you know, he could potentially go and sign for AEW, which I think would be a bit of a steal for AEW, because Nakamura's still got it. He can still go, as we saw last week and we saw today. So yeah, I hope they give Nakamura a run. I really hope they put the title on him, because face Nakamura is one of my favorites. Coming up in NXT and then coming across, winning the Rumble. Nakamura is great.
One point I will say on that Cesaro announced himself for the Rumble. Nakamura did not. So I thought that was quite interesting. Like, could he be thrown into said match later on in the piece? Stay tuned.
Yes, yeah. Then the next one was it cut away to a backstage segment. There were some really good backstage segments tonight, not like the Legends night of a week ago, which were just awful. But Apollo Crews in the office with Roman Reigns, and I didn't see it, but is it what Talk Is Smack? The show where they have obviously the infamous Miz promo that you cut on Daniel Bryan. And they had Paul Heyman and Apollo Crews on there last week, and Paul Heyman was talking to him about how he can be better and all kind of mixed messages, all coded stuff. And then Apollo Crews, lo and behold, is there. And after he slapped Big E last week, is Apollo Crews aligning himself with Roman Reigns? Is the tribe going to get bigger? What do you think?
It's a weird one. I mean, I'm not an Apollo Crews fan by any means. I think I've said that before. But like I said, it's good to see people getting, a bit of a spotlight on them. This week on SmackDown, it seems the week of sort of reformations and people getting a chance with Nakamura, Cesaro, and now Apollo Crews. I don't know about this. Does he fit in the bloodline kind of group? It's kind of a weird fit. But, why not? I did like it when he confronts Big E later in the night as well. And
I enjoyed that.
Title and sort of taunts that he's coming for that. So we've seen heel turn from Apollo Crews here. It was also weird because on that same Talking Smack, it was Paul Heyman who racked up Big E to get fire in his belly. And he ended up going on to win the Intercontinental title and splitting from the New Day. So, your thoughts on that are as good as any, but I don't really care.
No. I think Apollo Crews, as you said, Apollo Crews aligning himself with that faction will be really good for him. Potentially, if he goes and beats, if he sets himself up and he goes and beats Big E, then they've got the Intercontinental Championship and they've got the Blue Universal Championship. It's following that angle that Jey Uso was going about, that we run the show. So it's I think it could be good. Interesting choice for Apollo Crews though. The last one was Adam Pearce. Going back and forth, there was a little bit of needle between Roman Reigns and Heyman. Roman Reigns getting a bit tired of Paul Heyman, quite similarly to how Brock Lesnar sometimes did as well. And Paul Heyman going and like going back and forth to Adam Pearce to Reigns. Firstly, choosing the match stipulation himself of a no DQ match and a no what is it? It was like a no holds barred basically match. To which Roman Reigns said, "No, I don't want that. I want a last man standing match." So then sent him back again. Adam Pearce kind of said, "Well, of course he does. Like it's going to be him. It's the last man standing," and playing the victim in all of it. And lo and behold, comes out, signs in the middle of the ring, gives a contract to Roman Reigns and signs. And Adam Pearce says, "I've been waiting all night for you to do that." And gets out of the ring and then starts feigning an injury on his knee, limping up the ramp, and says, and of course all WWE officials know that there is a clause that if someone is not medically cleared to wrestle, which I don't think I'm going to be medically cleared to wrestle, an old injury on my knee, you know how it is, that I should select a replacement. And funny enough, I've selected a replacement. And I'm going, oh, it's going to be Damian Priest. It's going to be Damian Priest. And then Kevin Owens comes out, and I'm just like, oh God, Kevin Owens is just going to get beaten up again in a last man standing match now. So yeah, as good as the angle was, it was a little bit deflating at the end when Kevin Owens comes out, not limping after taking that huge fall 2 weeks ago and apparently being out for a while. Yeah, what are your thoughts on it being KO?
Well, I mean, it's just, recycling the same feud over and over again. I love Kevin Owens, I do. But if they're not going to put the title on him, why waste him getting another beatdown from Roman Reigns? And I don't see that happening because Roman's on fire. This is obviously a feud that they want to keep rolling for some reason. But Roman's not going to drop the title anytime soon. I mean, there's talks of him potentially having a fight with The Rock in another year's time at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
They bring the crowds back. So I doubt that he's going to drop the belt at the Rumble to Kevin Owens.
No, I don't think he will.
Yeah. I was thinking about Adam Pearce, like a guy who's a bit of a stalwart in the industry. He's never made it to WWE until he became a producer, but he's obviously been in wrestling a long time. He's a decorator.
They said about that. Sonya Deville said about it.
Right.
And he said, well, that's the old Adam Pearce. And then Paul Heyman came along and called him by his old character's name.
Yeah.
So they were alluding to the fact, and they were bringing that to light. Obviously, you said it last week on the podcast, and it was probably something that the average fan doesn't know. It doesn't know that he's got this
he was in NWA for many years, and he was a multiple-time world champion. That said, what do you think inside of his mind? Finally, I know it's storyline and things change, but he's like, oh, I made it to WWE, and although this is a BS storyline, I'm about to fight for the biggest title on the one of the coolest pay-per-views of the year, one of the most historic ones. And, then he's just dropped for, an ongoing storyline, which obviously makes sense. But he must be gutted that he didn't get that opportunity.
Well, obviously, it being a last man standing match, there's no reason he can't interfere. He can't come out and help Kevin Owens because Jey Uso will be there and maybe even Apollo Crews. So maybe that's where Damian Priest comes in.
Yeah.
Damian Priest is coming.
I would like to see Adam Pearce almost align with Roman Reigns. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I wouldn't mind seeing Roman have, someone in management in his pocket. And I wouldn't mind, we had echoes of Charles Robinson this week, the referee being threatened. I wouldn't mind a referee being in his pocket so that Roman
NWO
Reigns
style.
Is so unstoppable. He's got management, he's got referees, he's got, alliances with maybe Apollo Crews and the Usos and Heyman and so on. I wouldn't mind seeing that. So he becomes this unstoppable force that eventually someone has to come back and topple him. And that man is John Cena. I mean, what? No.
It'll be Triple H. Triple H will come and defeat him, of course.
Well, great roundup of SmackDown this week, and an awesome show in that. I'm looking forward to the next one.
I am. No, it's good. It's just getting better and better. One thing I mentioned it to you before the podcast. I don't know if you've noticed. Well, you said you hadn't noticed, but look out for it. This new camera angle they have when people are coming out, it makes it look like it is like a computer game. It's awesome. They had it in the NFL last week. They had it in. It may be a Fox Sports thing, but wow, it's so good. I'll look out for it on the UFC tomorrow as well.
I might have to replay it after this podcast today and have a little bit of a look-see. Well, thanks, Luke. We'll get into our next segment, which is always our favorite one, and that is the WrestleBeard Top 3, where we have a topic of the week, and we each have chosen 3 examples of that particular topic that we hold dear and true, and we'll count them down 3, 2, 1, back and forth, and we'll have a bit of discussion on that. So last week we talked about the crowning of the new tag team champions Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler, and I wasn't a big fan of that because I find that they're quite individual characters that have been thrown together. So not a big fan of that pairing. But I thought this week in that limelight, we could have a discussion about some of our favorite odd couples in the history of professional wrestling. Some of those random pairings where at first it seemed weird that they were thrown together, but then it just worked. And they had great chemistry, great matches, a great storyline. And, you know, whether they were for comedic or major storyline purposes, I think there's been a lot of examples of these throughout the years. So how about you kick us off, Luke, with your number 3 random odd couple in professional wrestling?
Okay, so I'll just say an honourable mention, and I was torn between this one and the one I'm going to mention soon. Sheamus and Cesaro, you're wearing their hat.
That's right.
They started out, they were feuding. They had the best out of 7 matches, and then the last one ended the draw. So because it ended the draw, you're now a tag team, and it worked really well. We're not. What is it? We don't
raise the bar. We are the bar.
Yeah, it was good, and their entrance was really good. So yeah, that worked. That was an honourable mention. But my first one is the power trip. The power trip. Stone Cold and Triple H. 2-man power trip. The Stone Cold and Triple H from the early 2000s, maybe late 90s. Obviously, 2 of the biggest stars in the company. Previously feuding, to then come together. They won the tag titles whilst also holding other belts. And yeah, it was just a very good, like, it was weird at the time because you had all these other tag teams that had been tag teams for years and had obviously gone through working together throughout, and then Stone Cold and Triple H were put together. And it was something that worked. It was something that worked. They had some good matches, some good chemistry, and were at a time seemingly unstoppable because they were individually so good, and then together very good too.
That's right. Well, they were the unholy alliance, weren't they? You know, Austin, obviously one of the biggest stars and baby faces in the company's history, and Triple H, you know, one of the biggest heels ever. And to be thrown together, I mean, really sort of, it elevated Triple H's stocks for one thing, to be, you know, level pegged with Austin. And it also gave Austin that heel credibility that maybe he was lacking prior. I thought that it was a good pairing. And, you know, I really despised Austin in that period. I really didn't like him. And that was shocking. It's much similar to Roman Reigns' recent heel turn. In that time, Austin, it seemed like he could never change from face to heel, and he did, and he did it well. And, you know, I don't want to, like, you know, see Triple H too often back like he was this week's Raw. But, you know, if he ever had another run and they wanted to reform that tag team, I wouldn't mind seeing it.
No, that would be good. I can't see Stone Cold ever stepping back in the ring, though. He's a bit hefty, isn't he?
Well, never say never. Oldberg's making his fourth return, isn't he? A great addition there, Luke. My first one's a little bit different and a little bit more oddball than yours. It was the team known as Headcheese. Now, this was an Attitude Era tag team made up of two floundering mid-carders who were not doing so much. Al Snow and Steve Blackman. Now, Al Snow obviously was this, he was kind of a psychotic character talking to a head. He didn't really have much going for him at the time. And Steve Blackman was the straight-faced MMA, kendo stick wielding sort of hard man who was, quite synonymous with the hardcore division in its beginnings. And so it was sort of like crazy guy with straight guy joining up to have hijinks. They wore big head cheese, like big pieces of cheese helmets to the ring. It was quite funny. But they had some good matches. They never became tag champs so far, as I understand. But they were always up there feuding with the likes of the Dudleys and Too Cool and so forth. And they always stood out for me as this really entertaining entity. I really enjoyed it. So that's my number 3 entry. What have you got for your number 2 entry this week, Luke?
Well, my second one is probably one that everyone remembers, but it was very good considering what happened in like the matches they've had before. But the Rock and Sock connection, The Rock and Mankind, and again, two massive stars of the company coming together and just creating this good comedic side. Their promos were brilliant, along with their wrestling in ring, winning the titles at the same time, and seemingly being unstoppable at one time. So yeah, Rock and Sock connection, The Rock and Mankind get number 2 slot for me.
I love them. And, Rock is my all-time favorite. I've even grown more admiration for him since he's become a Hollywood star. And who doesn't like Mick Foley? So to throw those two in the ring, two of the best talkers on the mic, can't go wrong there. Great addition for number 2. A surprising number 2, essentially, that they didn't make the number 1 spot. But we'll stay tuned for that one. Well, my number 2 this week, it's a tag team that they're very controversial. And I mean, they weren't thrown together essentially randomly. They were always together. But for me, they're an odd couple. One being quite a wise guy, talker, quite quick on the mic. And the other being a massive brute. That they don't look like they'd work well with one another. Their only link, I guess, is that they're sort of from the New York region. But that's Enzo and Big Cass. My name is Enzo Amore, and I'm a bona fide G and a certified stud, and you can't teach that. When he came out and he did his intro, it was amazing. And it always was like, yeah, ramble on, Enzo. But you're waiting for that moment where Big Cass is like, SAWFT soft. Like, who doesn't love Big Cass? And he was the muscle.
Carmella doesn't anymore.
No, well, that's probably. But he was the muscle of the group. Enzo was the talker. And, I just loved them. I think they were one of the hottest acts when they first broke into the WWE after leaving NXT. And they were just, it just made sense. Even though they didn't look like they should belong with one another, they were phenomenal. They never won the tag titles and ended up breaking up because Big Cass beat him up backstage for some reason. And then Enzo went on that dismal Cruiserweight Championship run. And then there was lots of controversial things happening between both of them, leading to both of their firings from the company. Now, I do see them coming back down the track. I could see a return.
I can see that, yeah.
And hopefully they've grown up and they learn from their past mistakes. But that's my number 2 pick for the week. So we've got some good tag teams so far, Luke. But there can only be one. Who's your number 1?
So my number 1, and it's a little bit out of left field, but it's similar to yours, actually. And I'll tell you why for mine, and then we'll speak about yours. is William Regal and Tajiri. Because William Regal at the time was a character I hated. I hated William Regal. I thought he was just everything about wrestling I didn't like. He, like, as I've said previously, at that time, I used to like the entertainers. William Regal wasn't an entertainer. William Regal was a really good technical wrestler. Now I appreciate him because he's a very good technical wrestler, and he's well respected throughout the industry and has been for many years, and obviously the commissioner of NXT, so he's still around. Whereas Tajiri was a character I really liked. Yeah, Tajiri was a character, and Tajiri was like Regal's lackey at one point, and they were doing some comedy spots and some slapstick stuff, which then turned me into being a William Regal fan against my best judgment and not wanting to be. And then they were a tag team, and they looked out for each other, and they did what tag teams do. And I remember one point in the Invasion era, when Regal was being set upon and Tajiri came down, and they weren't together anymore, but Tajiri came down and was wearing an ECW t-shirt and looking like he was going to lay into William Regal too. And Regal's sort of looking at him, and Tajiri rips off his shirt, WWE, and just cleans house. And then they get up and they embrace, and it was just everything that a tag team should be. So that was why I chose Regal and Tajiri over The Rock and Sock, because that tag team made me like both individual wrestlers more.
I get it. Let's be fair though, he's one of your countrymen as well. You probably
I didn't like him. I did not like him. Same with Pac. I didn't like him very much when he first came in. British Bulldog, I wasn't a fan of, because my countrymen, they can't really talk on the mic. They're
Wade
not
Barrett?
good talkers. Wade Barrett, so-so. He's a better commentator. I like him as a commentator more.
Okay, well, I like your pick, and I see why you picked them as number one. I have always actually been a William Regal fan, even going back to Steven Regal days. But yeah, no, I see why you've picked him. Okay, well, my number one pick this week, it's one of the reasons that sort of I stayed watching WWE when I first got into it, because, and we've talked about him before, but this tag team is Kane and X-Pac. And Kane being, at this point in his career, the muted big red monster, big red machine, who was Undertaker's brother, and he never said anything. He just had the little thing that talked through supposedly a hole in his throat, even though that ended up not being the case. And he ended up teaming up with D-Generation X's X-Pac for an odd couple, unlikely duo, who had some great matches for one. And they also had then a great feud after, when they broke up over the girlfriend Tori, which Kane was dating, and then X-Pac stole her from him. I think it was just, so awesome to see someone so small like X-Pac, he's not actually that small, to be fair, but against someone of the likes of, pairing up with the likes of someone like Kane, who's such a monster, and just looks like someone out of a horror movie teaming up with like the good little boy, and they're teaming together, and it just works, and it was so weird. They did try and replicate it and to a success years later with Kane and Daniel Bryan, another odd pairing that worked really well. So that would be my honorable mention, but nothing beats the days of Kane and X-Pac. Yeah.
Do you remember and if you're not down with that, then Kane's got 2 words for it. He goes,
That's one of the most memorable moments of my childhood. Don't worry about that.
It is, yeah.
Because I think that was the first time he ever said anything. And it was amazing. I was like, oh my God, he said words, Kane. Oh, it was so cool. Great additions. Well, did Regal and Tajiri ever take on Kane and X-Pac?
I don't think so. I think Regal and Tajiri were a little bit after. Kane and X-Pac were 98, 99. Regal and Tajiri were maybe 2001, 2002.
Different era, yeah, for sure. Okay, well, that wraps up our WrestleBeards top 3. Another great segment, and
That was a good one, yeah.
additions there. And it brings us to our final segment of the week, which is another goodie, and it's our WrestleBeards homework, where we provide some wrestling ditties that we believe you should go away and either view or listen to or watch or whatever you want to do with them. Use them as toilet paper if you must. But it's just something that we suggest that you get behind. And it can be tenuously related to wrestling. It doesn't have to be strictly all about wrestling. It could be a wrestler featuring or so forth. But anyway, what's your addition for this week, Luke?
So this was what would be considered as the original wrestling documentary. And it was, I originally saw it when I was probably about 11 or 12. Way back when, but I got around to watching it this week. I found a stream for it, and it brought back all these memories. And it was really the first real behind-the-scenes insight to what wrestling is, and the hard work that goes into it, to being a professional wrestler and being a successful professional wrestler. Something you didn't see, like the term kayfabe is spoken about. But this was the documentary that actually brought kayfabe to the forefront, to the spotlight, and it's called Beyond the Mat. So it was a documentary that featured various stars. We had Droz in it, who obviously tragically got injured, but at the time they were talking about calling him Puke, with the iconic scene with Vince McMahon in his office in an interview, trying to get him to throw up on just in front of him in his bin. It had Terry Funk, Jake the Snake was in it, who I mentioned last week, and it's just a real sort of dark insight into the life of a professional wrestler. So if you've not seen it, I would imagine if you're a wrestling fan, then you probably have, but go and look at it again with more mature adult eyes and knowing what we know now. This was obviously before Benoit. This was before lots of incidents that we've spoken about. Go and have a look at it and rewatch it, because it's a great documentary.
For sure. I remember watching it many moons ago, and now you've inspired me. I'm definitely going to go back and watch it again. It was sort of something unbelievable at the time, because no one spoke against kayfabe, and no one wanted to admit that it wasn't real, and that there wasn't these atrocities happening in the industry and so forth. So definitely a great watch there. Well, mine is a great addition as well, I believe, this week, and it's the Talk is Jericho podcasts, found on all great podcasting platforms.
Yep.
And basically, it's Chris Jericho, AEW member and WWE alumni, former world champion in multiple companies. And basically each week he just hosts a podcast where he has various guests, normally from the world of professional wrestling or rock and roll. Obviously, Jericho is a frontman for the band Fozzy, which is doing some great things at the moment. So he has access to a lot of great stars and great musicians. But not only that, he gets very similar to Joe Rogan's platform. He gets on conspiracy people. He has different politicians, different it people of the times. And it's always a great listen. It always goes for about an hour and a half. So it's quite a lengthy listen to. Various segments. And the thing I do like, I mean, it's obviously got a lot of advertising throughout, but the way he advertises some of the products, he does it in such a way that it sounds like it's part of the show, and he's still entertaining throughout those as well. He also has Duff McKagan on from Guns N' Roses each week to give his joke of the week, which is always quite fun. They're always the worst dad jokes around. And, he's released some of his music on there for the first time. And it's just a great platform for some wrestlers as well to come on and learn a little bit more about them when they're not getting such a great exposure on television. I've just listened to a couple in the last couple of days. The most recent being about the Dark Order's Anna Jay and her involvement in the company and how she got into wrestling. So it's a good listen to. And there was recently a really good one on the life and times of Brody Lee, who passed away recently, where they had many of the roster of AEW sharing their memories about Brody Lee, Jonathan Huber, and some of their experiences in and out of the ring with him. So another great listen to. Just go and listen to it. And I mean, any of the former episodes on there are great. The only thing I will say is that WWE won't allow Jericho to interview WWE stars anymore, which I guess. But it was always there was a middle ground period where he'd left the company, but he was still interviewing current stars on the podcast, and they were kind of crapping on the company for a little bit there. So that's why he put a ban on that old McMahon. But that's my addition for the week. So wow, we've had some great segments this week, Luke.
Yeah. Obviously, the one last one that you and I spoke about have your picks changed at all for the winner of the men's or the winner of the women's Rumble?
It's funny you mentioned that, because I mean, last week I had Daniel Bryan, and you know, this week when we watched SmackDown, he was backstage doing something with Otis and Chad Gable, and it didn't seem like this is going to be the guy to go on and headline WrestleMania. No. So I'm going to change it, and it's a really out there one, but I'm going to go and say Seth Rollins. He's going to make a return. Okay. Feeling. He's going to make a return, and he's going to win the Rumble. He's done it before, and I think like that will just give him a reason to be back in the main title picture again. So I don't know why, but I've got a good feeling about that one. For my women's pick, I'm going to probably keep Bianca Belair as my pick. I think there's some good steam behind her current feud with Bayley, but I do feel like she's destined for bigger things, and they're just sort of testing out her mic work and some of her skills at the moment in a feud with Bayley. But she'll eventually go on to fight for the title at WrestleMania. What about you, Luke?
Yeah. Well, we've got that great obstacle course to look forward to next week with Bayley,
which is just a repeat of like the Street Profits, who I believe Bianca Belair is married to one of those guys, and how they had sporting feuds with the Viking Raiders. So let's rehash that, and let's do it with Bianca Belair. Okay.
Yeah. So my men's one, it has actually taken a change. Like you said, it was weird. He was doing the stuff with the Gable Academy or whatever they call it now, and I thought that Otis looked more sprightly than Daniel Bryan, popping up to his feet, and then Bryan fought Cesaro and lost clean. What? So unless they're going with an angle where Bryan just loses, wins the Rumble, which they could do, I'm going to actually change my pick to Shinsuke. I think Shinsuke, 2-time winner, and similar vein, I think we're going to have a 2-time winner for the women's as well, and I think it's going to be Charlotte. So I just plucked out of the air last week Shayna Baszler. Yeah. But I think it's going to be Charlotte. I think Charlotte is going to win it.
I think she's about to win it, and Ric Flair comes and sweeps her feet or something. I don't know.
Goes like that. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Oh.
Well, I hope that Charlotte doesn't win, but I wouldn't mind seeing Shinsuke win. But no, I see your point there. Well, I guess that wraps up another podcast for the week. We'll be back next week with another offering of the Raw and Smackdown takeaways, the news of the week, and another top 3 plus some homework. So have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Cheers, Shrek. See you soon.